How does this affect us in our pocket domestically? I'm delighted to say Liam Halligan, GBNews economics and business editor, joins us in the studio. Now, Russia and Ukraine are huge exporters of various things. Can we go through exactly how this might affect consumers in the United Kingdom?
It seems like a distant war. It seems like diplomatic chest beating to lots of our viewers, but this will affect all of us in our pocket. This affects the financial security of our families. Russia exports huge amounts of oil and gas. It's the world's largest gas exporter. 40% of Western Europe's gas comes from Russia, and we use gas not just for cooking our egg and bacon in the morning. Gas generates electricity using turbines, and that's the really important thing, electricity. Russia also exports huge amounts of food. It's the world's largest wheat exporter. Talk to a farmer right now looking at fertiliser prices. Russia's just slapped a ban on something called potassium nitrate, the basic raw material of fertiliser. Fertiliser prices go up, and they are. Food prices go up. So again, it's particularly for lower income and more vulnerable families. They spend heavily, Tom, as you know, as we've often discussed, on food, on fuel, on heating. We already had a cost of living crisis coming down the track. We all know that fuel bills are going to go up on average by 54%. That's our utility bills in April. And we all have seen petrol and diesel prices going up on the forecourt. I'm afraid it brings me no pleasure to say this. We're going to see a lot more of that as a result of this military conflagration a long way away.
And this isn't just as a result of a particular political choice of Britain. We've seen as a response to the invasion itself, markets have been tumbling. I wonder, there are bad options for politicians. There's bad options that Boris Johnson will be assessing right now. Which would potentially be worse for UK consumers? Us slapping sanctions on Russia, or avoiding the sanctions but war? Would full-scale war actually be just as bad as all those sanctions as well?
You're right. It's a bunch of bad choices. Markets are tumbling. Stock markets are tumbling. So if you're lucky enough to own stocks and shares, or you've got a pension invested in markets, that's worth a lot less this morning than it was when you went to bed last night. Other kinds of markets, oil markets, the market for gold, the dollar, they're all spiking. When the world goes into shock mode, when you have panic and people are looking for safe havens, we call it, Tom, the God market. Gold, oil, the dollar, all those things go up. And of course, gold, you know, the dollar will mean very little to lots of us here in the UK unless we go on holiday to the States, and very few people own gold, even though lots of people talk about it. But oil affects all of us. And as you rightly indicate in your question, and I'm going to be examining this all day, and I imagine for the next weeks and months, sanctions are a two-way street. Yes, we feel that we must impose sanctions on Russia to take a stand, to try and tell Vladimir Putin that this expansionism is just not acceptable. On the other hand, sanctions will harm Western consumers, not just through oil and gas, but also food prices, as I've said, through fertiliser prices, as I've said. The Russians control vast reserves of weird-sounding metals like titanium, palladium, bauxite, which goes into aluminium. They control the market in the world for something called neon gas, which is used to create semiconductors, right? If you work in a car factory, you will know that a lot of the production lines are on go slow because there aren't enough semiconductors in the world at the moment. That was because during the pandemic, a lot of the manufacturing ended and we hadn't yet rebooted.
Yep.
But if Russia decides to really retaliate to harsh Western sanctions, this is going to become one of the major economic stories of my lifetime.
Well, Liam Halligan, thank you for running through us those very, very important issues there, issues that affect people in their pockets in this country.
And I'll talk about it more on the money at 1 p.m.
There we go. On the money, 1 p.m. on GB News, Liam Halligan's economics and business programme.